Bienvenidos a Échale Podcast, mi nombre es José Quintero y antes de que comience el capítulo, no se te olvide suscribirte, give it a thumbs up si es que te gustó y por supuesto seguirnos en las redes sociales @Échale Podcast. Y ahora sí, a continuación, el video de hoy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Échale Podcast. My name is José Quintero and once again we have another podcaster with us.
Angie de Ritmo a Toda Madre.
Eso, entonces el ritmo a toda madre el día de hoy con Échale Podcast porque realmente I'm very excited, Angie, because this person that we have on as a guest for today's episode is a person that I really hold near and dear to my heart because I feel like I know her even though we haven't really had a lot of sit-down conversations, but let me give you guys a little bit of who she is. Graduated from UCLA. She is a mariachi singer. She is the granddaughter of Pedro Infante. She's releasing an album real soon. I mean, there's so much I can say, pero...
Beauty and brains and voice.
Exacto. Sometimes comparadas con Thalía. There was also a little photo ahí que las compararon.
I see it.
Ahora sí, con ustedes, Lupita Infante. ¿Cómo estás?
I'm really happy, muy contenta de estar aquí. It's awesome because, I've known you for quite some time now. And I feel like you've seen a lot of the development part of my journey. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome because you started in te fuiste a concursar a México en La Voz. Look how far. 'Cause I literally have followed her since then because you started singing in your audition song one of your grandpa's songs. Y Yuri turned around and was like, wait a minute, Infante?
Esa voz.
Esa voz era tu abuelo? And it was like, little by little, we saw you grow and whatnot, but you grew up in SoCal. And then I personally got to hear your music back in 2018 or so, like in the beginning of the year. But I want to take everybody back to your roots. How was Lupita growing up? Porque you grew up in the United States, right?
Yeah, so I grew up, we were in Huntington Park for a little bit. So we were in, Huntington Park until I was about 7. And then, so my mom's an immigrant from Zacatecas, and she's done really well for herself, And she ended up buying this little duplex house in Downey. And then we moved over to Downey's, and we've kind of been there ever since. So since I was 7, I've been in Downey.
So you were born and raised in LA, basically.
Yeah. So basically Southeast LA all the way.
Yeah.
Look at the pride.
And yeah, so, I had a pretty normal upbringing, went to school, probably both of y'all's did, pretty normal. When I was in Huntington Park, because I was at Miramonte Elementary School, and I remember over there, people knew who my grandfather was, and they would ask me, and then they wouldn't believe me. So then a lot of times I would come home crying Ma, no me creen que mi papá es Pedro Infante. ¿Por qué escogiste este papá? Sad. And then there would be times where my dad would show up to the school, and then it was showing off,
Yeah.
That's my dad.
And then once I moved to Downey, though, cambió un poquito. I think the Latinos over there weren't. It's because Huntington Park is Mexican.
Mexican.
Yeah.
Yes. Shout out to HP. Yeah.
And then over here and down, and then also my mom worked at the school too. So once I moved to Downey, my mom stayed in LA Unified, and then things I kind of went under the radar a little bit more as far as La Nieta de Pedro Infante, and I just continued like a regular bad student.
You were bad in school?
I've never really...
educational-wise, o eras traviesa?
O comportamiento, sí.
No,
¿Te miras calmada?
I was just bored of like school learning. I'm more of a like, let me do something.
Yeah.
I want, show me how to do it, and then I'm gonna do it, and then that's how I learn. Yeah, yo me creo maestra. I do something once, yeah, I could teach you whatever it is. I don't know. Maybe from, my mom, she's always been like a teacher. But, and then music-wise, I always had my dad, we would watch him sing, or watch him in movies or this and that. But then I started taking classes, guitar classes. And then later on, middle school, I did like choir. So then that took me to like a different kind of music. It was like choir music of, like very standard, like American songs.
Was that like engraved in you desde chiquita? Oye, vas a ser cantante igual que tu papá, igual que tu grandpa.
I feel like my mom's side, which is not the Infante, they were always like, sí, es cantante, canta, and they would have me sing everywhere. But then I feel like from my dad, like he would be more observant and would say like, oh, like she's got it, like, oh, she could sing in the right key, she's in tune. But it wasn't like, oh, tú vas a ser cantante and you're gonna follow my footsteps. He was always very like open to it, but never like try to put it on me.
Entonces nació de ti querer cantar y hacer todo más que la familia de tu mamá era como que, no, you should sing. And your dad's like,
They
do
just
what
wanted
you
to see
want,
another star in the family.
I think my mom's side has always been like proud, like, mira la nieta de Pedro Infante, It's like that typical like Mexican thing that I feel like I don't always like.
Yeah, of course.
But also at the same time, I'm glad to bring that joy,
Yes.
But
you have other siblings, right?
My mom and dad just had me.
Okay.
From my mom, I don't have any siblings, but my dad, there's like 5 of us that we know of.
No manches. O sea, Pedro Infante Jr. también era tremendo mujeriego. Like.
Yeah, he was spreading a seed all over the place.
He tried to do the Lord's work. Nick Cannon le queda corto.
Creo que Nick Cannon le gana, pero por poquito. Yeah. No, pero yeah, so it's 5 of us that, that we know. We say that because there's been some like,
Have you done 23andMe to find out?
I did the ancestry.
Okay.
¿Y qué tal que salió ahí?
Así de siblings, nothing yet.
Okay.
But sí ha salido alguien who was like, I was adopted and my mother told me that my father was a musician. But this was like in the 60s.
Oh.
So we think it's maybe my grandpa's brother.
Wow.
Well, yeah. So
yeah. Right.
There's a lot of work to do. But it's really interesting. And who knows what my tíos.
Yeah. And any of your brothers, do they sing?
My brothers
or sisters, no sé si que tengas.
No que se dediquen like how I've been.
Pero sí cantan, pues.
Kind of.
They can hold a note.
I mean, they sing because like they sometimes les sale, but it's not like
they try
something you'd want to like listen to necessarily. No offense, sorry, brother. And then I have a sister. She's the youngest, and then because it's not like, kids from here and then kids from. It's like we're all kind of like crisscross
at the same time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the youngest, her name is Pamela, and she's a flamenco dancer.
Wow.
And she studied at the University of New Mexico, and she has her degree in flamenco, which my grandmother, Lupita Torrentera, she was also a dancer. That's how she met my grandfather. So it kind of stems from that.
Todos salen ahí. Nos comentó José que you went to UCLA. What did you study?
I studied ethnomusicology.
That's a big word. I couldn't say it myself. Like, por eso no lo dijiste.
Ethnomusicología. And the way I kind of describe it is is the study of music, but in a cultural context. So like what political events or what social events or what any kind of historical events influence the music, you know? So like, for example, mariachi was kind of like a product of mestizaje. And I can go into it.
No, and you know
look
what's
very
interesting?
passionate about it. So yes, tell us a little bit more.
No, pero sí, que nos cuentes, but it's interesting because you said that when you were younger, like the school wasn't for you, and UC systems tend to be a lot more theory-based and versus like hands-on based. Was that frustrating for you?
I struggled. Yeah, I struggled a lot, but it went by so fast that it was like, it was such a blur because I was a transfer student. I went to Cerritos College first.
Oh, shout out to Cerritos.
Yeah, shout out. They put up with me for like 10 years.
Oh, no manches.
Because I was kind of like in and out, on and off. I was always working like part-time jobs and doing the singing thing on the side. So it was a really good community for me to really figure out, you know, what I wanted to do. And then during that time, my dad passed away, so I kind of took a break. So there's a lot of stuff, but I feel like the community college system really helped me. And then, once I had all my credits lined up, I'm surprised that they accepted me.
You're like, UCLA.
But
are you sure?
at the end of Cerritos, like, college, I made the dean's list. I had like straight A's, so I think they saw that part. Because I had also, you know, I reprobé matemáticas so many times that I had to go to ELAC to do math. Like that's.
Cerritos is like, ya no te queremos. Vete a otra escuela.
I was one of those.
That is so crazy. Porque, mira, muchas personas dicen, oh, no, you know, you should go straight to UC, que it's a waste of time going to a community college. But honestly, I feel, because I went to PCC, entonces para mí también me ayudó mucho poder, because I do not like school. But, you know, it was for me, like, yo necesito ir a la escuela. Like, I want to prove my parents that, you know, they came all the way over here, like, for a better life for us. So, entonces, you know, it is a good thing, you know, tú fuiste, like, even though, you know, como yo, in and out. But at the end of the day, look at you, you know, you went to UCLA, you graduated, look at you, you're implementing that in your music, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, it definitely goes hand in hand. In sometimes in ways that I wouldn't even think it would. But like you're saying, I feel like we do this a lot for our parents. Yeah. And, you know, like, because we want them to feel like their sacrifice was worth it. And I don't know, like, I don't know about that anymore. But I'm glad I did because I feel like the day I graduated from UCLA, my mom was like so proud. Like she was just like beaming.
You're like, I could get a Grammy, but...
Sí, antes era la hija de Pedro Infante. Ay, mira, mi hija se graduó de la UCLA. Because usually, you know, that's how, like, it makes them proud, you know, knowing that, and especially UCLA being a big school, you know, con nombre, it's like, you know, it makes them proud. So, yeah, I feel you.
I think they lived through us, too.
Yeah, vicariously, yeah. And especially your mom, who's hilarious. I see her all the time on your Instagram. When you were growing up, how was your relationship with your father? Hola, ¿qué tal? Te saluda José Quintero y espero que estés disfrutando de este capítulo de Échale Podcast. But I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about my friend Abogada Jess. She's the only accident attorney that I say Jess to. So go ahead and write this number down on your phone. 1-888-818-5377. That is 1-888-818-5377. You never know when you're going to be involved in a car accident or in an accident at work. Y lo mejor de todo es que ella da consultas completamente gratis. She's here for the community. She's a Latina lawyer for you. ¿Tienes alguna pregunta, alguna duda? Ella también habla español. Y lo mejor de todo es que si no tienes documentos, if you don't have any type of legal status here, you can still go ahead and ask her any questions. Y si tienes preguntas sobre cualquier otra cosa que no sea de accidentes, ella también te puede ayudar. Entonces, no pierdes nada en guardar su número de teléfono en tu celular. Eso es 1-888-818-5377. 1-888-818-5377. Es a la única abogada que yo le digo, Jess.
It was kind of like a little bit sporadic because he was traveling a lot. He was touring. He was making movies. So he would like spend some temporadas here with us, and then some with Mexico. And then he has like a Mexico family with my brothers and sisters. So, and it was, you know, it was kind of like his own thing where like he wanted my brothers and I to have a relationship. So since we were really little, like we would talk on the phone and nos saludábamos and, you know, so he kind of built that relationship up for us, which was nice. But aparte, you know, but he was, I feel like my mom was really more of a single mom for sure. Because she was like working. She was the one really taking care of me.
Did you travel a lot to Mexico to see them?
I did like once, and then I was kind of like traumatized.
¿Por qué?
Because I don't know. I think seeing my dad like in that setting with his family, it was just like not what I was used to. I was really used to just being my mom, and then with my mom, I kind of have always had like a lot of freedom, especially being a girl growing up in the US, and then even her backstory, you know, coming to the US really young and really appreciating that freedom of like no man's gonna tell me what to do.
Ooh,
so
that part.
Yeah. So I feel like that's very ingrained in me now, and I think that was part of it, you know. And my dad was, you know, he had a lot of like discipline growing up from my grandmother, and then he was in like military school, so he was very like párate derechita, and I had to eat like a certain way, and he would like uncross my feet and stuff like that, you know, where it's just kind of like, what the hell.
¿A qué edad se separó de tu mamá?
Kind of never.
Yeah.
It was like, it was very
So it was
entangled.
very shocking for you to go like meet your siblings in Mexico.
I mean,
so
it wasn't like shocking. It was cool because I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna meet, and I had so much fun like with my sister, bonding with her. Like I would dress her up, and then I'd like take, you know, the cameras de antes que you have to click. And then I remember we got those pictures like developed, and you know, it was a really good experience, I think, for all of us to really grow together.
Yeah. I did want to ask, was there any type of euphoria every time your dad went back to Mexico and the day you went with him? Like, oh my God, like this is what stardom is, because here in the US, I mean, you can walk for the most part as a Mexican singer, Mexican actress, and you're not going to get like a big old rush of people trying to get an autograph picture and whatnot, versus if you go to Mexico, it might be the complete opposite.
Honestly, I think it was always here more so where people would recognize him and be like, oh, nos regala una foto, un autógrafo. It was usually here. And then over there, he was like a different person. Like, I don't know how to explain. Like I think he had more freedom. And it was like he was a different person. And then over here, yeah, he was right. But I never felt like a euphoria, like, oh, okay. But it was always interesting to you know, watch my dad. And then, you know, in the moment, I was so young, so I was just kind of going through the motions in the moment. But thinking back on it now is when I like reflect more on it and what it meant and who he was and what was his life like and all of that. All of those.
That's so crazy.
When you were doing La Voz in Mexico, what made you decide to go back to Mexico? Why not do La Voz here or America's Got Talent?
I don't know. I think I just saw that there was auditions, and it was as soon as I graduated UCLA, and I saw that there was auditions, and I was like, I think I'm gonna just see what happens because I'm done with school. Like I checked off, you know, from the list of like things you have to do for your parents, and now I'm gonna just do whatever I want and just I was looking for my opportunity. And I think as a singer, like there's no really set path. You know, when you have a career and other things, like maybe you know you're gonna be a doctor, you go to med school, you have like those steps. Like to be a singer, there's just so many different paths.
Estando en La Voz te abrió muchas puertas, or how
Yeah,
did that happen?
so
How did it change your life?
basically because I met my managers through there, and once I met them, then I started learning about more of the business of music and the steps you have to take to really become, I guess, a professional or
An artist.
I mean, you're an artist, but then how do you get paid for that? You know, because anyone can sing and be good and be an artist, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna build a career, if that makes any sense. Because you know, like there's like the hobby of music too.
Of course, just like this podcast, it's like, how do we get paid? Well, we're gonna get paid for it.
¿Cómo le vamos a sacar dinerito a esto? No, it's
So, and I think it's like that with anything, right? Anything in the arts, entertainment. So after meeting my management, and a shout out to En Total, that's really when they started teaching me like, okay, it's like A&R. They really did all of the artist development, and we got a distribution deal with 1RPM. We got a contract with Peer Music as a publisher, so they started developing me as a songwriter. So now I'm writing songs. They also, what else? You know, just meeting different people, putting you in the right rooms to get like opportunities. Like we did a commercial for RAM, and then even the latest one would be like being with Sony Music Latin.
How did you feel about that, signing with a huge disquera?
It's crazy, you know, because I think back on like how we started and then now being here, and it's really crazy. And just thinking about all of these songs that are coming up on this next album, because all of the songs that were recorded on this album coming out, the first album with Sony, they were all a product of like that whole development as an artist and writing. At the time that I wrote these songs, it wasn't really like, oh, I need to write for like commercial success. I wasn't thinking that way yet because I wasn't with Sony yet. It was more like, I want to write like what's in my heart. So I have a lot of those kinds of songs in this next album que se llama Amor como en las películas de antes. And yeah, so I feel like I kind of poured my whole heart. And then it's really nice that, you know, Sony really, they embraced all of it and they're kind of running with it. And I feel like a lot of people ask me, oh, like, do you have your creative freedom? And I'm like, well, yeah, because I feel like I've worked so much on my own. Like, we can do everything on our own. And then we're just like,
here's a product.
This is what we have. This is my child.
Question. ¿Cómo pudiste escoger lo que querías poner en? Because I'm pretty sure you have a lot of songs, like choosing the right ones for this album.
I don't know if there's like the right ones, because that's really hard. And I think we just made a choice like, okay, this is what we got, and like, let's just run with it. But there's definitely songs in there that are very like deep songs. Like one song specifically that's called Me Vuelves Loca that I dedicate to my mother. And also to my father, because it's really about the sentiment of like, you know, that family dynamic where, you know, obviously there's so much to unpack about being here as a first gen. There's so many things that you have to kind of learn on your own, and on top of that, you have like this culture clash, right, with your parents. And I think sometimes we get some strange relationships with our parents, and it's like they drive you nuts.
I love you, but you're driving me crazy.
Exactly.
I want to take it back to 2018 because you were mentioning that that's the first time that your mom heard you on the radio, and it was in Mariachi. And I was literally remembering as you guys were talking, how did you come up on the radar? So I've always been a fan of música ranchera, Jorge Negrete, Pedro Infante, Antonio Aguilar. So one day we were doing how do these songwriters, like legendary singers, how are their offsprings doing? So then we obviously went from Antonio Aguilar, Pepe Aguilar, Ángela y Leonardo Aguilar, then from Vicente Fernández to Alejandro to Alex Fernandez, and then also Negrete. Then when we got to Infante, because I mean, I was doing all this research because I love it. I was like, okay, Pedro Infante Jr. And at the time, I was like, oh, mira, Lupita Infante. And we're obviously a radio station, so we have to get the song. La que escuché fue Flor Pálida.
No, Flor sin retoño.
Sí, Flor sin retoño.
Yeah,
That one.
yes,
That one.
yeah.
Entonces, I just tagged you. And you were like, what? And I felt like, una famosa me respondió. And then after that, you just started releasing music, but we also started playing your Christmas music. Sí, Blanca Navidad. Because I was like, hey, I love this song. Put it in rotation. And they did. Me hicieron caso.
And it's still there.
And it's still there for Christmas. Like they'll put it in rotation. And I remember meeting you for the first time, and it was at a fashion show for Glaudi. And you showed me your song Serenata before it was being released. You're like, you want to hear it? And I'm like, yeah. I already feel cool that like an artist is showing me their music. And that is by far one of my favorite songs because I think with that song, you were changing the narrative of this machismo culture, this societal culture more than anything, that like un hombre le tiene que llevar serenata a una mujer, which they should, but why can't a woman do it?
Yeah.
You know? And I thought that was great. And just to see that evolution musically and keep going. And obviously I've seen interviews where you've talked about, I was an Uber driver before.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel now with Sony, like reflecting on your Uber rides back then?
It was actually Lyft.
Oh, Lyft.
Yeah.
Perdón.
No, because
Perdón,
I applied for Uber, but I don't know what happened. There was some kind of breakdown because for whatever reason, they didn't get me. But Lyft did, which was awesome. Yeah, I remember. Well, I like driving.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I literally have a song called Mi Carrito coming out. And it's just like, I feel like LA car culture, it's a thing. And, you know, I was like a really good chauffeur. Like I had perfect temperature, had like the good music. Like I kept the car really clean.
Did anybody ever say like Infante?
Yeah, like two people.
Okay.
And, but yeah, and that was during La Voz. Because because I had to be in Mexico. Yeah. So when I was here, I was like, well, what else can I do?
Yeah.
So that was what I was doing. Yeah.
Oh my God. Was there ever a sense of, we hear it more than anything, and I'm bringing Jamie Lee Curtis into this, nepotism, where you're like, oh, you're the son of. Was there ever a notion of nepotism, or that you felt like, oye, se me abrieron puertas por ser hija de o nieta de?
Yes, kind of. Yes, because I still see it even now. Like, I see a lot of like my compañeros, like other mariachi singers, where, you know, they're like giving it their all. They're putting out music. And, you know, I feel like I do have this special background story that brings extra interest.
Foot in the door.
Yeah. And it just like maybe shines a light on like, oh, well, look at what La Nieta. But at the same time, it's a weird combination of things, because it's not like I'm not like a trust fund person, or I didn't even have my father or my grandfather to like support or guide me or anything like that. So it's kind of a interesting both sides. And then I had a very normal upbringing. I remember like little girls would be like, "Are you rich?" No. Broke as fuck.
Yes, I'm trying to make it out here.
Not yet.
I wanted, before I get into these goals, because there's so many things y no nos están dando mucho tiempo, and I'm trying to go fast. And you can go ahead and answer it or not.
Okay.
Your reaction towards Omar Chaparro's Netflix movie about your grandfather, because ahí conoce a su nieta, and I'm like, they should have just got Lupita.
I thought so too. I think it would have been more powerful.
Yes.
And I think it would have been made more sense and more of a connection.
Because it was basically your background. She was a university student at the time who was getting to reconnect.
Except she was like white looking.
Yeah. Yeah. except for that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for that part.
And she was like too like angry feminist, which I was like, why you gotta do that to her?
Were they basing it off of you? You're like, I'm not even like that.
I felt like it was too angry, you know, like they try to add drama to it. Like, I feel like if they could have tweaked certain things, it was still really, I think a lot of people connected with it, including myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even because that song, De que me sirve el cielo? I would cry because I connected to it because of, you know, my whole ancestry, my dad, and just like not having them. And it was like, oh, like, it, you know, it really did connect with me. And then at the same time, there was like, the fans were like, well, this will never be Pedro Infante. And I'm like, yeah, well, nobody is ever going to be Pedro Infante.
Exacto.
But I feel like Omar Chaparro is very charismatic, and like, I really liked a lot of it. And then, except the nieta, I didn't like her.
That should have been me.
No, because we've asked Omar, and he's like, I love Lupita Infante, todo lo que ha hecho. And obviously, he's very proud of everything that you've done, especially now that you're going to release Amor como en las películas de antes. Is there a particular song that you can share just a little tiny piece?
All right. You want Heartbreak, Love, or...
I'll let you decide.
Or complicated relationships.
Oh, she's going to identify. Let's do complicated.
Okay, so Me Vuelves Loca would be. So it goes, hay unas cosas que no sé explicar, cuánto te amo y cuánto te puedo odiar. Me vuelves loca, es tu mirada que me dice que en ti encuentro amor. Es la confianza que te tengo para causar dolor. Me vuelves loca, me vuelves loca. Y no sé cuántas veces ya te pedí perdón. Y aunque me vuelves loca, tú eres la razón de cual yo vivo. Sin ti no hay sentido. Perdona que el olvido en mis momentos de desesperación. El día que me faltes, no me quiero arrepentir de las veces que pude amarte y mal te hice sentir. Perdóname, mamá, si te he ofendido. Or insert name here.
Yes.
Pero me vuelves loca.
Wow. Lupita.
One of my favorites.
Sí. Lupita Infante, Amor como en las películas de antes. Thank you very much for this sit-down conversation.
Thank you.
Sabes que te quiero mucho.
Angie Jose, thank you for being here and for this time, and I love you guys.
I know.
Thank
Wish
you.
we
Sé
had
que te
more,
vamos-
pero bueno.
Te vamos a seguir y pues también
There's
nos
gonna
vemos
be-
pronto.
Stay tuned for part 2.
Exactly.
Sí.
Stay tuned for part 2. All right. Gracias a todos. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share this plática con Lupita Infante. Perfect. Espérate. No se ha acabado el video. No se ha acabado. ¿Por qué? Porque no te has suscrito. Suscríbete aquí abajo. ¿Ok? Y comparte el video y no se te olvide seguirnos en las redes sociales @échalepodcast.